What are all you guys doing here? There's a great journalism lesson in here, which is don't show up on time, show up 15 minutes early to any assignment you're coming to. And now you get to reap the rewards of that, because we're going to start 15 minutes early. I am going to, I have the honor of introducing a fantastic journalist. Bryce Newberry is a senior at the Cronkite School, studying broadcast journalism with a minor in digital audiences and criminal justice. Bryce actually needs, for this group, no introduction. Take it away.
Thank you.
I knew he was going to do that.
No, I didn't. Yeah. But good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here with us today. And
don't you all have classes or something like that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Are you getting credit for this, or no? Oh, all right.
We're really lucky to have a man who needs little introduction with us today. But as you may know, he is the anchor of Anderson Cooper 360 on CNN, and
which is good because my name is Anderson Cooper, so it's natural that I would get that show.
They should rename it.
Yes.
And he also has worked at ABC News and Channel 1 News. He's the winner of countless awards, but today he is actually the winner of the Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism. Thank you so much for being here. After finding out that you were the recipient of this award, and then after receiving the award earlier today, what kind of stood out to you as monumental in your career to earning that?
Should we stand up so that people in the back can see, or is it? Yeah. I don't really. I've never really thought of anything in my career as monumental, so that seemed like really egotistical. I don't know. Was anyone at the award? Okay. Oh, cool. So for those who aren't, just when I was approached about this, I actually declined the award, and then I was informed no one has ever done that, and so then I realized I'm an asshole, and so I shouldn't do that. But I declined because I don't really think I deserve it, and I feel like there's a lot of. One can always get better, and one can always improve no matter where you're at in your career. And I certainly feel that there's people I look up to. I mean, Walter Cronkite and Bob Simon and all these people, particularly at CBS. And they are sort of the North Star of journalism. And so, I don't know, I'm pretty negative on my own abilities, and I'm pretty tough on myself. So, I mean, there are a few moments that I feel like I was in the right place at the right time, or I got myself to the right place at the right time, but it's, I don't know, I don't really think about like my career in that sense. Like it surprises me I even have a career. Like I literally, so when I was in college, I graduated college in 1989, and I was a political science major. I'd focused a lot on communism and the Soviet Union. So when the Berlin Wall fell in '89, I was really screwed. I mean, I was happy for them, but for me, I was a little bit like I've wasted 4 years of a college education on a system that doesn't exist any longer. But I wanted to get into news, and so I actually had a colleague of mine made a press pass for me. I borrowed a camera, and I just decided if no one would give me a chance, I'd have to sort of take a chance. If no one was going to like give me an opportunity, because I couldn't get an entry-level job at ABC or CBS, I decided I'd have to sort of create my own opportunity. So I, with this essentially a fake press pass and this borrowed camera, I just decided I would go to wars by myself, because I figured if I went to places that were really dangerous, there wouldn't be as much competition, and I was also really interested in insurgencies and counterinsurgencies. So I snuck into Myanmar, to Burma in Southeast Asia. I crossed over illegally into it. I hooked up with some students who were fighting the Burmese government at the time. And from there, I ended up going to school in Vietnam for a while, and I ended up in Somalia in '92 in August. If anybody saw the movie like Black Hawk Down, this was like 8 months before Black Hawk Down happened, and it was the early days of a famine and a civil war, and that's where I realized, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
We saw a lot of the tense moments in the videos earlier, and take us back to some of those. Like, was it ever unsafe or regrettable being there?
Yeah, I mean, early on I was traveling by myself. I was a one-man band, so I was, shooting myself, and sometimes I'd like hand the camera to somebody and ask them to hold it so I could do like a stand-up or just talk to camera. Yeah, I went to a lot of places I had no business being. I mean, I was in Somalia in the middle of a civil war and a famine. I had no idea, really. I'd never been to a war zone. I mean, I'd snuck into Myanmar, but that was minor compared to what was going on in Somalia. I'd never seen people die in front of me. I'd never, been in an operating theater while they're amputating legs. And, you find yourself in very, back then it was dangerous. It's even more dangerous now. And obviously I'm much more recognizable now, so the security in that sense, in a global sense, and CNN is seen around the world, so there's a much bigger security concern now that I have. But back then, I was just doing really stupid stuff in a lot of places I really had no business being. I worked for this thing called Channel 1, which was a show seen in high schools and middle schools in the early 90s, and it was in about half the schools in America. And for the first year, they didn't give me a bulletproof vest, so I was going to all these war zones with no Kevlar vest. And finally, after a year, they got me a vest, but it turns out they got me the lowest level of protection vest you can get, which is a level 3A vest, which is it stops handgun bullets. It didn't do anything for rifle fire. So, and in Sarajevo, people were being shot with 50 caliber rifles from far away. So it was funny because I got to Sarajevo and I unpacked the vest and I put it on, but right before I put it on, I read the warning label and it said, "Warning, this vest does not protect against sharp projectiles." I was like, I thought that's the whole point, but apparently not. So, but yeah, the only time I've really gotten in a very bad jam was in Egypt during the revolution, in the overthrow of Mubarak. My team and I were attacked by a mob, and then had to try to extricate ourselves from this mob. And we had to walk through this mob for about 4 blocks while they were punching and kicking us, and then had to go into hiding for a couple days, leave the building, the hotel we were staying in, move to another location so we could broadcast. And also there were concerns about people entering the hotel to take out reporters. So, you find yourself in some sticky situations. But
Yeah.
I've been lucky.
Yeah. I want to go back to the award for just a minute.
Is this weird for you standing up like this?
Kind of, but it works.
Okay.
We can keep doing it.
All right.
Back to the award for just a second, though. What does it mean to receive this award in this period of President Trump versus the media or constant media attacks?
Yeah. Well, look, this is a great school, and so it's an honor to be here. This is a school that's known around the world for journalism and mass media. I knew Walter Cronkite a little bit, both as a kid and as an adult. So to be given this award, it's a huge honor. Obviously, it's kind of surreal for me. They make this video where you have your colleagues talking about you, and I didn't know half of them, but I'm kidding. But they rarely talk to me, so it was nice to actually hear them talk about me. This is a really tough time for journalism. You're labeled the enemy of the people by the president, and that's obviously something which you have to take seriously, and is a concern that other people believe that. And I've lost a fair number of colleagues and friends in war zones, and none of them were the enemy of the people. And I don't think anybody here studying journalism is planning on being the enemy of the people. So I think it's a tough time. That there's an assault on the truth that's going on, and things which are true are labeled lies, and things which are lies are labeled truth. If anything, I think it's more important than ever to know where your information is coming from, to know, who's reporting it, how has it been vetted, what sort of system is in place for checking it. Even now with, some apps online, video is so easy to fake now, and it's incredibly important to know where the information you're getting is coming from. You all have more access to more information than any previous generation in the history of the world, and you have it at your fingertips, and it's an extraordinary thing. When I was in college, you had to go to the library, and there was microfilm and microfiche, which I don't even know if that still exists. I just think there's so much information, there's almost too much information out there, and it can feel overwhelming at times. And I was saying this earlier before, it's very easy to feel like the world is worse off than it's ever been. But that's actually not the case. I mean, by every metric, the world is actually the best it's ever been, and life for human beings is the best it's ever been and only getting better. And everybody in this room is less likely to die a violent death than any human being in the history of the world. You're likely to live longer than any human being in the history of the world has lived. People living in extreme poverty, it's down, literacy rates have skyrocketed. So by every metric, life is only getting better, despite all the challenges that we face. But it often doesn't feel like that because we all have cameras that we carry around, and any incident immediately can be videotaped and seen by the rest of the world, and it makes one feel as if, God, all these terrible things are happening. These things have always happened, and they've happened in much worse ways than they're happening now.
Mm-hmm. You talked about all the information that's out there, but you also talked about earlier how important it is to get it right. How do you do that every day?
I have a team I have a large staff of people who, and CNN has thousands of employees who are trying to do that every day. And there's just to get a broadcast on the air requires a tremendous number of people. You would be surprised if you sit in a control room just how many people. I mean, a lot of you know what it takes to put a broadcast together. There's a lot of moving parts, and any one of them that fails, suddenly the screen goes blank, and that's not a good thing. You are part of a big team, and you rely on that team. In the end, it boils down to your responsibility. As the anchor, it boils down to your responsibility. What is coming out of your mouth, you're responsible for, and whether it's true or not, you're responsible for. And even if somebody has given you information, it's not an excuse to say, well, somebody just gave me that information. The information I say has to be accurate, and if it's not, I acknowledge it right away. If I've made a mistake, I try to acknowledge it right away. Unlike many in our political life, I think there's nothing wrong with everybody makes mistakes and just acknowledging it and being transparent, apologizing for it, and trying to correct the problem. But there's a lot of, in order for us to get a story on the air, it goes through a number of layers within the newsroom. There's a standards and practice. Attorneys are involved often. If it's potentially something that may end up in a court, there's a lot of layers of people. There's a lot of eyeballs that are on each and every story, and every piece of video, and even then, mistakes get made. But it's far less than one might think. And our track record at CNN, frankly, and we're sort of in a golden age of reporting. I mean, a lot of the reporting that's being done is extraordinary right now. The amount of information that people have been able to find, particularly about this administration, the amount of leaks coming out of this administration is pretty extraordinary. There's been extraordinary reporting from CNN and Wall Street Journal and New York Times and Washington Post and others, and so in many ways, it's an incredibly exciting time to be a reporter and to be entering this profession. It's also a really challenging time because things are so polarized, and you have people who believe that what you're doing is absolutely wrong and feel emboldened to confront you about that or track you down, and there's security implications for that if you're on air and stuff like that, but it's an exciting time.
So you talked about the stories and the process of making sure that...
Do I not need a mic? Or am I... No,
you're still good.
I assume it's working.
But the process of all the fact checking and everything. But what about the process of choosing which stories are on your show? It's only an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix of stuff. I mean, there's stuff which I'm particularly interested in, but if I did a show just based on only the stuff I was interested in, I would be doing a show on like obscure insurgencies in Democratic Republic of Congo and stuff, which is interesting to me. It not really necessarily interesting to a larger audience. So it's a balance of stuff. It's stuff that I'm particularly interested in. It's things which are important in the news of the day, things which have some long-term significance and long-term importance, what viewers are interested in hearing about. And so it's, that's what you do all day long. We're sitting around following what's going on, and we have a very low-tech board with stuff we write on it, and the things we start out thinking we're going to be reporting in the morning about what we're going to report that night, it changes throughout the day. So, I just called into my office to find out what we're looking at, what things have changed, where our correspondents are. There's a few stories bubbling today that we're not sure if we have them cleared yet through standards and practice to report. So it's a process.
And what about the Full Circle show? How does that come into the picture? And
it's just the show I started doing on Facebook like a month or so ago, and I was standing by an elevator about to leave, and somebody said at CNN, "Oh, we're doing this thing on Facebook. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure," not realizing it actually becomes like a daily show that actually takes on a life of its own. But it's just the thing in television right now, and as you are all considering, how many of you are actually journalism students? Most, okay, all right, pretty much everyone. All right. If you're not, technically you shouldn't be here. And the thing that you are trying to figure out as a journalist and as somebody who's entering the profession is, where is it going to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now? And nobody has the answer to that. I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knew about the iPhone until the iPhone came out. And so now, of course, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world to have. But when you read early reviews of email, people were like, well, why do we need email? We can just call. Email, why would people use email? And now, of course, the idea of calling seems absurd. So nobody knows what platform any media is going to be seen on 10 years from now. And so what all these media companies are trying to do right now is just be on as many different platforms as possible. So whether that's Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, which seems to be fading fast, or a computer or whatever it may be, and that's all you can do at this point. And from a student perspective, as you already know, is just try to understand as many different aspects of how news is put together, from editing to shooting to being on camera. Writing is incredibly important and often kind of undervalued and underestimated, the importance of it. Even if you think you're going to be like an anchor, you're only going to get to a certain level if you cannot write in your own, if you don't have a voice and you don't know how to write in your own voice. If you're just reading something that somebody has handed you or put in a teleprompter, you can maybe progress to a certain point, but I guarantee you the teleprompter is going to break and you're going to be on the air for 8 to 10 hours on a particular subject. So if I asked any of you suddenly right now, you have to go and broadcast for 8 hours right now about the war in Syria, ask yourself, wow, okay, what would I do for 8 hours talking about the conflict in Syria? And that's kind of an interesting proposition to be confronted with. And that's kind of that's to me the most exciting thing, other than being in the field as a reporter and as a correspondent. I mean, nothing compares to being in the field, but being behind an anchor desk when something is truly happening and there's nothing written and you just have little pieces of information, it's an extraordinary thing. There was a mine disaster in West Virginia, the Sago mine disaster, which was in the I can't exactly remember, 2008 maybe. People trapped in a mine, and I ended up broadcasting, I think it was from 9 p.m. at night till 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. And again, it was just nonstop live coverage, very little information, and that's an extraordinary thing. It's like running along the edge of a cliff that's collapsing, that's made of sand and is collapsing beneath you as you go. And if you've ever done that at a beach, as the tide goes out, it's kind of exciting as it collapses underneath you if you can keep upright and keep going, but it's very easy to fall. And it's very easy to destroy your career in a sentence or two by just not saying something that's accurate or not being able to do 8 hours of live coverage on something. And that's when, having a voice and being able to write in your own voice, that's what separates people who have longevity in the business and people who don't.
When you do have to go on for so long like that, how do you do it, and how do you do it so well?
Well, I don't know if I do it very well, but you're trying to form a coherent narrative about an event that you only have a few sentences of knowledge about. So, say there's a plane crash, and you have somebody who's tweeted some stuff about it, but that's unverified. You have just a few little pieces of information. it's your job to figure out a way to, in rolling coverage, to keep that conversation going about with the information you have. I'm a big believer in pointing out the information you don't have. Admitting what you don't know in a situation like that is as important for people watching as admitting what you do know. And you never, pretend to know something you don't. You never say something which you're unsure about. If somebody says you have one person like in your ear, and if they say, well, I think this is happening, you don't go with that because what they think doesn't matter. It's either happening or it's not. It's either true or it's not. And then you try to get some experts on a phone, and you try to get somebody into the studio, and you try to reach out. You have bookers and you have producers who are working phones to, get as much information as possible. And that's when it's, you depend on your team to, suddenly tell you, okay, there's a person who was on the plane who just, is calling in, and then you talk to that person.
Changing gears a little bit, we have the midterm election less than a month away, a key Senate race. Yeah, you're going to be busy. And key Senate race right here in Arizona. But there's been a lot of controversy over the 2016 election and whether or not the media gave President Trump the election. Mm-hmm. And, you were involved you were on TV then.
I was, yes.
So
I'm familiar.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Do you think, what role did the media play?
Well, I mean, I find it an odd notion that, that it was somehow the media that convinced people to vote for Mr. Trump. I don't know that many of Mr. Trump's supporters would say, oh yeah, it was watching CNN that convinced me he was the guy. I think nobody can say that, there's so much coverage. Nobody can say, oh, I didn't know this about a candidate. I mean, if you were actually genuinely interested in a candidate, you can find out everything about that candidate. You can find out everything that candidate has done since they were a child. There were endless interviews we did and reporting, and everybody had the information, and people decide to vote for the people they want to vote for. And it's not my job to tell people to vote for. It's not my job I don't wear politics on my sleeve. I don't try to have a liberal newscast or a conservative newscast. I leave that up to other cable channels or other people who do it very well. It's not something I want to do. Viewers are smarter than ever before. I think all they want, in my mind, or I know as a news consumer, all I want facts, I want information, and I want viewers to make up their own mind. So if you give people information, they can choose to believe it or not. They can choose to listen to it or not. But I think the idea that, showing a candidate and a candidate who had never been on the political stage and giving that person coverage and taking them seriously early on, the idea that somehow handed an election to somebody, I just don't think it actually makes sense. But I understand the criticism. It usually comes from people who do not like the president, and it rarely comes from people who like the president. So, yeah.
With the president, there's a lot of breaking news. Your show and several other cable shows were just on a CBS Sunday Morning segment about the overuse of the term breaking news. We sit here in the forum, breaking news all day. What do you think breaking news means, and do you think it's overused?
Yeah, look, that's a constant thing. It's very easy to slap for some producer somewhere in a newsroom to put up a breaking news banner, and you have to be aware of that. It's a very easy. It's like a hit of, from what I understand, a hit of crack. I mean, it feels good initially, but long term, it kind of wears you down, from what I hear. I don't have personal knowledge on that one, but if anybody else wants to discuss that. But I do think, anybody? No? Oh. Maybe after you graduate. But I do think, there is stuff that is actual breaking news, and there are things that are happening. And I saw there was another cable channel which used to put up a thing called a banner that said "Breaking Today." I was like, "Breaking today? Isn't that news? Like that's like something that broke today." I mean, yeah, it's what happened today. It's like, that's what we do. The idea that you would label it breaking today as if somehow that's more urgent than just, yeah, this happened today. I don't know. I thought it was funny. Wasn't my network, so maybe that's why I thought it was funny. But I understand the criticism. I think it can be overused. It's something I'm certainly conscious of, but I cannot tell you the pace at which information is coming in now. I mean, people used to talk about a 24-hour news cycle. I mean, the broadcast that we plan to do, I mean, it's 2:11 here right now, so that's 5:11 in New York. So I go on the air, I do a Facebook show in about an hour and 10 minutes, and then I'll have a show tonight at 8 p.m. East Coast time. The show we have planned already for 8 p.m., I'm guessing that 50% of what we think we're going to be doing is going to radically change by the time we actually go on air. There's so much stuff breaking by CNN, by the Washington Post, by the Wall Street Journal at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, at 7 o'clock. There's stuff that breaks while I'm on the air. And nobody I know who's covered news for a long time has ever seen a time like this. And it's just, it's an extraordinary time. And whatever side of the political aisle that you're on, it's an extraordinary time to be in the news business. There's some specific challenges, but it's also kind of this golden age of information. And I do think there's extraordinary reporting going on from a lot of different sectors.
So since things do come in so late, how do you prepare for a show that isn't really put together?
I mean, all I do is research. Like, all I do is read stuff all day long. So I need to be able to, because everything is going to change, so there's no, what I spend a lot of time preparing for are contentious interviews. So if I know tonight I'm going to have a contentious interview with a politician, I will spend hours looking or reading transcripts of every interview that person has given over the last 6 weeks, say. And then, because if you do that, people repeat themselves and they have various talking points. And if you know everything that person has said for the last 6 weeks, you can generally have a sense of where they're going to go in an interview, or where they're going to try to go in an interview, and then you can kind of head them off. And you can arm yourself with facts. If you see, if somebody has said something that's not true, and you have what is true, that's a very satisfying interview, to be able to have that in your arsenal to push back on somebody. So those kind of interviews take a lot of preparation. But a lot of it is just stuff that pops up, and you just have to know the stuff. You just have to know it. I mean, you just have to spend all your time. I'm genuinely interested in news. I'm genuinely interested in what's happening. I'm genuinely interested in what's happening all around the world and in the United States. And, I just am naturally, it's what I do. I like reading information. I like learning new stuff every day. I've been trying to teach myself about cryptocurrency lately, and Bill Gates. What was it? Mark Zuckerberg taught himself Mandarin. And I'm like, if Mark Zuckerberg, who's probably pretty busy, can learn a new language in a year, any of us can keep up with stuff. And so that's all I do all day long, is really just, read stuff. So there's no real secret to it. I mean, look, I hope you all are interested in, I assume you're all here and doing this because this is something either you've been interested in for a long time, or it's something that gets your heart pumping, the idea of being a reporter, or being an editor, or being a producer, or whatever, a camera person, whatever it is. And when something is a genuine reflection of of your passion, it's kind of a cliche to talk about, but you're going to be able to put in the hours required to become the top of your field in that. If it's something you don't really like doing and you're miserable, it's not going to be something that you may force yourself to put in those hours, but long term, you're not going to be able to. And so you really do have to, find some aspect that you really are passionate about and that you really love. And it won't, in the best of all worlds, it doesn't feel like work. It's an extension of who you are, and the idea of not doing it. For me, the idea of not being able to get on a plane and go to Afghanistan and, go out on patrol with Marines in Helmand Province, or go to wherever it may be and tell stories I just can't imagine not being able to do that. I have no actual skills, so there's nothing else I could do. But when I was going to Sarajevo in the early 90s, and I was by myself, and it was dangerous, and I would come back, and my friends would be like, what are you doing? Like, this is nuts. And it just never occurred to me not to go. I just couldn't imagine. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people who are going through this experience of having their cities surrounded and having people, shoot their, kids as they're walking down the street with 50 caliber sniper rifles. And if those people are going through this, why shouldn't I go there and go through it as well in order to report on what's happening?
You told us earlier at the luncheon about not having a degree in journalism, and obviously everyone here will have a degree in journalism.
I hate you all.
How has that been difficult or better? Or?
Nope. To be honest, no one's ever asked. Excuse me. Yeah, look, I think, a degree in journalism is great because I think you probably, how many people here know how to edit on a laptop? See, okay, I don't. How many people, I don't know, how many people can operate a camera here? Okay, I can operate a camera too, so I'm with you on that. But I mean, so, there are things that you all know that I don't. When I started, as I said, I started out a one-man band. I was shooting a kind of a cinema verite style. It was stuff very much like what Vice is doing, except it was like 1992. So every time I hear Vice talking about how innovative they are, I'm like, nah, not so much. But but then after I did that for 3 years, and then afterward I got hired by ABC News, and I was like the youngest correspondent they'd hired. I was 27, which isn't that young, but they were like, "We love what you're doing, just keep doing it." But I had no idea how to, write a minute 30 piece for the evening news, because I'd never had to really do that before. I was writing 6-minute pieces about the genocide in Rwanda while I was there, or from Sarajevo, or I was doing live shots. And so, there was a whole skill set of stuff that it took me, that I, and I'd never been really on television, like in a suit and kind of talking to the camera in the way that other people do in like local news. I'd never had that experience. And so there is like a skill set that you learn in journalism school that I didn't have, that took me a while to learn. The flip side of it is I also was never molded by a local news station saying, well, you don't really sound like a newscaster. You should go to a voice coach and learn how to talk like the newscaster on The Simpsons. Kent Brockman, is it? I think, yeah. And so, I had it was an advantage for me and a disadvantage, because I was doing something which was kind of unique at the time, and yet at the same time, I didn't have kind of the skill set that probably many people in this room have going into a profession. I wouldn't change it, because for me, I was interested in wars, and I wanted to go where for things that weren't just stories, where there was life and there was death, and I wanted to learn about things for myself and see things and tell stories there, and that's seemed important to me more so than trying to get a job in like a local station. And I was lucky that I was able to do it. A couple of kids I knew who were doing the exact same thing as me got killed in Somalia. A kid named Dan Eldon, who was a photographer, was hacked to death by a mob, along with a photojournalist named Hansi Kraus. So, I was kind of lucky.
Get your questions ready. We're going to do audience questions in just a little bit. But I wanted to ask, because a lot of people know you for being so genuine and compassionate on TV.
I went to school for that. Yeah. That I learned how to be. Yeah,
no, but what would your advice be to any of us who...
Look, I think, you all have something that makes you unique and different. And don't let somebody in a newsroom, who's been in the profession for 40 years, squeeze that out of you and make you sound like everybody else who's already in the newsroom. And, you're gonna have people, if you're on camera, you're gonna have people telling you what your hair should look like and what your voice should sound like. And I can tell you, my voice doesn't sound like any of that. I have kind of a weird, chicken-like laugh, and I say a lot, I say like too many times, and I speak too fast, and I stutter, and I had mild dyslexia as a kid, and those are not attributes which, those are things which somebody would have tried to stamp out had I been in a newsroom at a local station working my way up. And I'm glad that never happened because it has made me, after a while people be like, oh yeah, okay, well, so he stutters, that's fine, he seems kind of normal. And so I do think that, don't forget what you bring to the table. And yes, there's conventions you have to learn and things you have to learn, but you learn those things just like an artist, you learn those things so that you can you can alter them, you can change them. That's what, Jackson Pollock, was the painter he was because he had a whole knowledge of art history up till then, and that allowed him to move it into a next phase in a new direction. It's the same thing in any kind of profession, I think, especially in news. You want to be yourself. There are obviously things you're going to need to learn and do things in systems that companies may have, but don't lose the stuff that makes you unique. Because more and more, it doesn't matter if the thing is well lit. It doesn't matter. It does if you're like, I'm on 60 Minutes. They like things shot a certain way. They like it, well lit. We spend a lot of time on it. But, everybody's used to cell phone cameras and stuff. And if I believe in natural lighting, I don't like stand-ups where reporters like standing in front of the White House with a microphone pretending, or not pretending, but sort of being the all-knowing, all-seeing person. I just like it when somebody turns to the camera and talks to the camera and then turns to somebody and asks a question. And to me, that's, television news should be as close to real life as possible. It shouldn't be this like well-packaged, perfectly lit thing. It should be gritty and real, and particularly if you're in a place where the story calls for that, where that is the reality of what's happening. So I guess that would be my advice. If I'm not great at giving advice because I don't really like listening to other people's advice, so I hesitate to even give advice. But I do think, just kind of hold on, or at least keep it somewhere inside you. You don't have to shove it in people's faces, but keep inside you what makes you unique, and that gives you an edge in a way that other people don't have. Maybe it's not going to work for you, maybe you do need to listen to somebody and be like, what, that is a little actually too edgy, and that's not really helping you in your profession. But also just practicing your writing, and just even if you think writing is not important, even if you think you're going to be this anchor monster who's just, like kind of comes in and does some newscast, or you think you're going to be a producer and don't need to write. I'm telling you, you need to know how to write, and you need to just practice, and it takes years and years to find your voice as a writer. And the only other advice I have is, I know a lot of you do internships, and I think that's vitally important, because it allows you to see all aspects of the business. But once you get a foot in the door, whatever it is, whether it's on an internship or your first job or whatever, you have to out-hustle everyone else around you. You have to work harder than everybody around you. If you can, be the first person in, be the last person to leave, volunteer for stuff that no one else wants to do. I only got a show at CNN because I kept volunteering for every assignment that nobody else wanted. I didn't take vacation, other people took vacation, I'd filled in for them, stuff happened while they were on vacation and I was on the air. I would work every weekend. Even now, I allow myself 1 weekend off a month, and I work every day, other than that one weekend. And it's really just because there's someone like smarter and younger just waiting to take my job away from me, just like I did to somebody else. So, I believe in out-hustling everyone else around me. So, yeah.
Can we sit down now?
If you want, sure.
What audience does
If you don't want the people to see you, that's fine, Bryce, I get it.
What questions do we have from the audience? There's going to be 2 mics going around.
Okay.
I'll stand since
Hi.
you're standing. You can sit, Bryce.
So my first question is, as a person who's wanting to become a war correspondent, working in these conflict areas, and clearly that's not really what goes on in the U.S. constantly enough,
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, which is good.
Right.
But what tips or advice do you have for someone who doesn't get into that their first time and is like shocked or scared or gets confused? Just kind of, what advice do you have?
About your first time going to a war zone or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, the truth is you never know how you're going to react. There's people who think, well, I'm going to be, it's like when people talk about what would happen if they were confronted with a shooter. They're like, oh, I would attack the person. You have no idea. I'm telling you, I guarantee you, when shots go off nearby you, or a bomb goes off nearby you, or someone comes at you with a rock or a club with nails hammered into it, you have no idea what's going to go through your mind and what you're going to do. And some people who think they're going to be really tough are the complete opposite, and some people who think, I couldn't handle that, I would panic and freak out, rise to the occasion. And there's no way to know until you're actually in that situation, and hopefully you're never in that situation. A lot of war reporting and being in a combat zone is about having fallback plans and having escape routes and knowing where not to go. The easiest thing in the world is to get killed. When I started out, I kind of, I'd seen a lot of movies where people got killed, and I thought, it happens in slow motion, and like the world stops spinning, and it's a big deal. It's not a big deal. Someone comes up and shoots you in the head, and you drop down, and the world keeps on going, and nobody remembers your name. And the battlefields of the world are littered with the corpses of freelancers and young people trying to get into the business, because these companies are not wanting to send the people that they're paying huge amounts of money to, who they have to provide millions of dollars worth of security people and a close protection detail and K&R ransom, insurance and stuff. And so, Austin Tice is a young man who was in Syria, who's disappeared, who's, nobody knows where he is. There's a lot of people who have lost their lives doing this. And so I would you have to be cautious. And you can't really plan too much for it other than you try to know as much as you can about the lay of the land. It's more dangerous now than ever before. I mean, it's just, the kidnapping risk is so high now. I would not encourage people, I often think now, if I was starting out, how would I do it? What would I, going to Syria, I wouldn't do that if I was by myself. I mean, things change day to day, hour by hour. Roadblocks get set up by groups that previously weren't in control of an area. You have to kind of know the lay of the land and you have to work with the local person, have a fixer who can kind of tell you where to go and where not to go. Things that you oftentimes the most dangerous places, they don't look that dangerous. It doesn't look dangerous until the mob has turned on you. And that happens, it's like a school of fish. When you ever see a school of fish like turn direction, and it's like the entire school of fish suddenly changes direction, goes. That's what it's like in a mob. And it happens really quickly, and it's a very difficult thing to get out of. There are particular challenges for women in a lot of societies. In Egypt, when we were being attacked, it was myself and a male cameraman, my female producer, and we formed a circle around her. People were trying to rip off her clothes. People had their hands down her pants. People were punching me and kicking me, as well as my cameraman. But we were most concerned about her and walking, through this to try to get out of this thing together. But it's just important to know your surroundings and to try to do as much research in advance and just really be cautious, because I'm telling you, it's so easy to get killed, and not just as a reporter. I mean, when you see it up close, the first time you see it, it opens your eyes, and you're like, everything you thought you knew, everything you saw in a movie, it's nothing like that. I don't know if that answered your question at all, but go right ahead, go. but I mean, but on the flip side of it is, I do think there's nothing more exciting and compelling and just from a standpoint of a life experience and from a standpoint of reporting. I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than being in a place where people are in need, or where people have had their lives, taken from them, or have loved ones taken from them, and you're able to shine a light onto darkness. You're able to focus attention on something, a story that needs to be told. And that's an extraordinary feeling. It's an extraordinary feeling to be brought into somebody's home who's just lost their child to a sniper, and that mother wants to tell you about their child. They want you to know that child's name. And you know, it's a privilege. I mean, it truly is a privilege. It's not for everyone, but it is a privilege. Yep, hey.
Oh my God. Sorry, I'm like a really big fan. I watched you since I was like 5. Oh my God. So cute. Sorry, I can't breathe. I wanted to ask you, after all the years and accomplishing so much at this point, how do you focus on your craft and stay like very grounded?
How do I focus on my craft? I don't know. I've never used that expression. I don't know. I mean, grounded. I don't pay attention to the idea that I'm on TV has no reality. I mean, I'm talking to a little piece of glass in a dark room, or I'm talking to a little piece of glass in a camera I'm carrying still, or that my cameraman is carrying, or my camerawoman is carrying, and I'm not talking to a large group of people like this. There's an intimacy to being on camera that I really like, and I like the intimacy of it because I'm introverted and I'm shy and none of this comes naturally to me. But talking to a camera is very natural to me because it's so intimate. It's like just talking to your best friend. And but there's always stuff to get better at. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 things that I'm kind of happy with how the story ended up, that I ended up, you know, writing and editing and putting together, ended up. But, you know, I have 18 years of stuff I'm not happy about because if you're in Port-au-Prince the day after the earthquake and 200,000 people are dead and there's, you know, bodies everywhere and there's a man with a wheelbarrow with his, you know, dead child being wheeled in it, and he's trying to find a cemetery or a place to bury his child, and there's no place to do that, and there's people digging through rubble with bare and bloodied hands, and you can hear the people trapped beneath crying out. To try to capture all of that and put it in that little camera lens, it's a really hard thing to do. You know, that camera lens, I mean, it's just a little piece of glass, and you can't cram all that stuff in. You can't cram the sound of the flies, or the silence of it, or just the wails of somebody, or the death rattle of somebody taking their last breaths. To try to get all that and come up with some words that don't interfere with the pictures, or just allow there to be silence and let the pictures speak for themselves. It's not something you ever are fully satisfied with, because it's ultimately a one-dimensional image on a screen, and you can't bring somebody with you. You know, if I could take everybody here and take them to, you know, Port-au-Prince the morning after the earthquake with me, that's the only way you can really do it. Otherwise, it's a fraction of the sounds and the smells and the emotion and the power of it and the life change. I mean, it is transformational. You know, you do that, you go to that, you spend a month in Haiti after the earthquake, and you come home and you ask your friends what they've been doing. They're like, saw a couple of movies, and you're a different person than you were a month ago. I go in stories now, I spend 2 days in a place for 60 minutes, and I come back and I've had a life-changing experience, and my friends are like, oh yeah, we went out for pizza. And after a while, it's very hard to like come back and talk to people about what you do. I don't talk to people about it because no one really wants to hear about it. Because no one wants to hear that, oh yeah, you just spent 2 days having this transformational experience, and they haven't, and it's like you're speaking a different language. But in terms of, you know, staying humble and stuff, no good comes from thinking you're hot shit, you know? I mean, no good comes from that. I mean, you become an awful person if you think you are, and if you pay attention to, you know, how many people watch you on a given night, or how many people don't watch you, or, you know, are you on a commercial, or is your face on a billboard? Like, if I'm on a billboard, I don't go to that part of town because I don't want to see that. I don't look at myself on TV. People come up to me all day long. I talk to people. I take selfies all day long. I pretend I live in Mayberry in New York City. Everyone's like, hey, Andy. I'm like, hey. And it's like living in a small town. And I just pretend, oh, I must know them. And I have such bad memory. I can't tell if I actually do know this person or they know me from TV. So I have to greet everybody with equal enthusiasm. Because I might know this person very well, but I literally will not remember their name. So I'm like, hey, to everybody. And, you know, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think anything good comes from thinking about yourself as a public person. It's just not a good look, and it's just not a good way to live. it's like, you hear people like celebrities who talk about themselves in the third person. Like, let me tell you a little bit about Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper, I mean, like whoever gets to a point in their life where they think, oh yeah, that's normal. That's a normal thing to do. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is what I do for a living. This is a calling I have. The fact that other people see it, I don't think about that, and I prefer it that way. So, like the fact that you're all here, it's really nice, but like in my mind, you all had nothing else to do, and you're just happen to be here, and I'm just talking to you, and that's cool. And and then I'm going to go to another room, and I'm going to talk to a little camera, but it has no reality that people are going to be watching it or commenting it or being on Twitter, attacking me or praising me or whatever it is. I don't read. I just stopped reading all that stuff. So I don't know if that answered.
Hi, Elioff Gabai, senior here. You mentioned out hustling everyone, especially early on, and continuing to do that. How do you find the balance between working too hard and also working smart?
The question is, how do I find the balance between working too hard and working smart? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I'm not good at balance, so I'm not really the one to ask. I don't know. To me, my go-to response is just work harder. So like, things aren't going well, just work harder. You're not happy, work harder. You have no friends, that's fine, just work a little harder. And it doesn't do much for my friend in the friend department, because my friends after a while are like, why even try to make dinner plans with this person? Because he's just going to cancel because something's going to happen and he's going to go off. I once brought a group, 3 of my really close friends to Rwanda, because I love Rwanda. I wanted them to go see the mountain gorillas. I wanted them to go to the Genocide Museum. I've been to Rwanda like 10 times since I was a kid. I got there, I checked into the hotel. I turned on the television, I saw on CNN that there was a mention of a malnutrition crisis in Niger. And I was like, you know what, I'm actually not too far from Niger. I'm just gonna go to Niger, because why do I really want to be here on vacation? So I went down, I said to my friends, like, I'm leaving, I'm going to Niger. And they were like, we've never been to Africa before, and you brought us here because you promised you were gonna and I'm like, you know what, you'll figure it out. It's not that difficult. And so I left them and went to Niger. I haven't talked to them since. Like, I don't know where they are or how they're doing, but, so I'm not very good with balance, but if, like, this is more interesting than what I would probably otherwise be doing. Like, what am I gonna do? Sit on a beach somewhere? Or like, I don't know. When it's something you love, it's what you wanna do. And the idea of not doing it is just, it's impossible to think about. Like, the idea of being on vacation to me, I think I've had maybe 1 or 2 vacations that I have not jumped off of early in order to go shoot a story because something more interesting came along. And I don't do well with time in my hands. I get in my head, and I'm a weird person. And so I think it's probably better. I'm not giving you advice to follow my footsteps, because I think you probably should develop some sort of work-life balance and have a family and stuff. But my dad died at 50 when I was 10 years old, and he died at 50, and I always thought I'll be dead by 50 because he had heart disease, and there was heart disease in the family. So I felt like I had to pack a lot in before 50. And I'm now 51, and my doctor's like, okay, I promise you, you're not gonna die of heart disease, and like, you got a lot of time left. So now I'm like, well, what do I do now? So I'm now at a point where I'm like, oh, well, I need to like come up with a second act. But I've just been trying to pack a lot in case bad things happen, so. I don't know where the mics are. Or
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. My name is Victoria.
Hey.
And my question for you is there anything in your career that you still want to accomplish?
Is there anything in my career that I still...
That you still want to accomplish?
Gosh, I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I don't know. I just want to get better at what I do. Like, there's so many things I could get better at. There's questions I forgot to ask in an interview, or I wish I had asked, or lines that I thought of years later for a story that I feel like an idiot. Why did I do that? Like, I would like to write there's a correspondent at CBS named Bob Simon, who I grew up watching, who died in a car crash about 2 years ago. I wish I could write like him, and that's an objective for me. And so it's those kind of things. It's not like, at this point, it's not, I want to be on TV more, because I don't. I'm on TV more than my mom wants to watch me. So, that's never a good sign. And I just want to get better at what I do. I hated my 20s. I hated the year after college. I hated the first couple of years after college. I hated the lack of confidence I had. I hated the not being sure of exactly what I wanted. And there's nothing better. It just gets better and better as you get older. I know no one's going to believe this, and sounds like what an old person says, but the level of confidence one has in your abilities, it's a great feeling. And you know, I just want to get better at what I do. And as long as it's enjoyable and interesting, there's a lot of stuff I don't like about it, and obviously pressures, and there's tremendous pressures, and there's, you know, you have threats and all sorts of weird stuff goes on. You know, people stalk you, whatever it is. At its core, what I do is incredible, and I feel privileged to do it.
Hi, Mr. Cooper.
Hello.
I'm
Call
Kelly
me Anderson,
Donahue.
please.
I'm Kelly Donahue. I'm a freshman here. My question to you is, earlier today you said that in the eyes of the president, news media has kind of been like the enemy of the people. That's pretty tough criticism. My question to you is, how do you manage that kind of criticism on a day-to-day basis? Like, how do you stay motivated?
Well, yeah, it's obviously when the president calls you an enemy of the people, not me particularly, but although I don't know his feelings about me particularly anymore, but you know, media in general is fake news and enemy of the people. Obviously, that's, you know, it's deeply offensive for all of us who work in the business, who have lost friends, who have, you know, sacrificed their lives in order to tell stories in places. And I don't think that's true. I don't think any of you in this room are in this profession in order because you want to be an enemy of the people, and to be labeled that in this democracy in which this profession is, you know, enshrined in the Constitution, unlike most professions. And but I think what you do is you keep your head down and you do your job, and you don't whine about it, you don't complain about it, you know, you don't cry about it. You report. And you know, it's been said before, and I'm paraphrasing somebody else. I'm not even sure who said it, but like, the answer to that is reporting. And the answer to more criticism is more reporting. And the answer to more criticism is more reporting. And that's the answer. You know, you do the job. And if people are listening, that's great. If people aren't listening or choose not to believe it, that's fine too. I can't force anybody to think a certain way, and I don't want to. But I am a big believer in doing the job. And yeah, I guess that's the answer. Yeah, I can't, yeah.
Hello, Anderson Cooper.
Hello.
Before I ask a question, I just want to say that I'm very grateful for what you do on CNN. And when I was in high school, I watched your show every day, and you do an excellent job in
thank you.
Reporting the news.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, this might be a difficult question to answer since you graduated with a political science degree from Yale University.
Mm-hmm.
What made you interested in pursuing a political science degree, and what would you have done with the political science degree if you had not gone into journalism?
Yeah, so political science, I mean, I'm terrible at math. I'm terrible at actual science. I'm terrible with computers, and so I was good at history and English and extracurriculars, and I thought, well, political science is sort of like history, except less. It seems easier, and it's like reading the newspaper, and I'm really interested in the news and current events, and I'm interested in obscure countries and obscure insurgencies, so I'm just going to do political science. I had no idea what it would, you know, I think had I not done this, I interned at the CIA for 2 summers. I thought about a career in the Foreign Service and the State Department. I thought about working in a refugee camp. There's, you know, those were kind of the things floating around in my head. But, you know, I ended up, frankly, just making a list of all the things I wanted out of a life and out of a profession. And being a foreign correspondent was kind of everything on that list. And so then I just set about a way of thought, okay, now I need to just figure out a way to make that happen. And I was very, very lucky. So, yeah, thanks for your question. Yes, back there.
Hi, I'm Vivian Mesa. I'm a senior here at Cronkite. I was just curious, what is the biggest mistake that you've made in your career, and how did you overcome it?
That's a good question. I've never made a mistake, so I don't know how to answer. Actually, the mistake was asking you your question. No, I'm kidding. Gosh, the biggest mistake. I've made mistakes. I've said things which were factually inaccurate and been able to correct them right away. I've said things which were snide, and I regretted that, and I apologize for it. You're on TV for, I don't know how many thousands of hours of television I've done, but, and a lot of it is live television, you're going to end up saying stupid things at some point, and I think you should just own up to it and acknowledge it and, apologize and take it as a lesson. And I'm not avoiding actually answering with a specific. I'm just trying to. There have been mistakes. I honestly just can't think of a specific thing right now. But there's been. One big thing. Okay, so I did a story for 60 Minutes on a North Korean defector. A book had been written about him called Camp 14, I think the book was called. He was the only defector known to have actually been born into a concentration camp in North Korea because his parents had been separately imprisoned in this camp. And as a reward for their good behavior, they were allowed to mate with each other. And that produced a child who was this man. Anyway, he just had this incredible story. He'd escaped. He'd ended up in South Korea. He was he was outspoken. The stories he told, he actually had lied to the reporter initially about what happened to his mother, and then he revealed that he actually ratted out his mother to authorities, and she was shot to death in front of him, and he ratted her out because he hated her, and she was competing for food in the concentration camp, and he wanted her food. So he had said things about himself which were not flattering, that he had betrayed his own mother. Anyway, it turns out, so we put this story on, got a lot of attention, and as I said, this book had been written about him. He was, the UN had him speaking. He spoke at the State Department. We checked things out as much as we could with South Korean intelligence and sources. And then it turns out 2 years later, he admitted that he lied about one aspect of the story. He was born in one camp and moved to a second camp. So his story was not completely accurate. And once somebody has lied about one aspect of a thing, there's no their credibility is gone. If he's lied about that, then what else has he lied about? And so that, I went on air and explained what had happened and, apologized for it. You try to fact check as much as you can. There's some things which, and when you're telling them, you acknowledge that you cannot verify this information, that you have, this is what you can verify, he has scars on his back. Aspects of his story check out, but there's some things you can't. And so we had the bases covered, but, he had lied and he was a convincing liar. And, you like to think you can tell when someone's lying. You can't tell when someone's lying. Sometimes you can, but it's a very difficult thing to do. So to have somebody go through an entire 60-minute story and lie about one aspect of the story was devastating. So that was a big mistake.
Over here.
Over here, okay.
Hi, Anderson. My name is Sebenzile. I am a Fulbright Humphrey Fellow from South Africa.
Cool. Where in South Africa?
Johannesburg.
Ah, cool.
But recently moved to Cape Town, but Johannesburg is home.
No, I love Johannesburg.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now you made me forget my question. Sorry. You say that the response for reporters, for journalists, should always be to write, right? So that, for me, feels as though you're saying newsmakers, politicians in particular, can do whatever it is that they want, and essentially they want the attention, so they can be misogynistic, homophobic, racist, say absurd things, because they know for a fact that reporters will continue to write. So that, for me, feels counterproductive.
What do you mean, continue to write?
As in you're reporting it, right?
No, I didn't say that. No, I said it's important as a journalist to know how to write so that you can explain things well, so you can set yourself apart, but you should challenge. I have no problem challenging. Your job is to challenge people based on facts. So, you can Google any number of interviews with quite homophobic people I've done where, there's one I did that's online of I don't know, it's too boring to even go into. But I mean, your job is to challenge people on facts. And there's nothing better than being in a contentious interview where somebody had said something which is just factually incorrect or racist or bigoted, and to challenge them on it. To me, that's what the whole job is.
Okay, that makes sense. But my question then is, in what way then do you then support, so for example, there's a female reporter a few weeks ago where the president made a comment to say she doesn't think, right? But that presser continued. So how do you then almost show solidarity with colleagues who receive all sorts of abuse from newsmakers? I would have thought maybe everybody who was there should have gotten up and left, right? To send a message to these people to say, it's unacceptable to treat reporters in a particular way. Show some respect for the profession. And if you don't do that, then we won't come to your press and we won't cover your event.
Yeah, I understand the argument. I mean, to me, it can get a little precious to, you know, I have people insult me all the time. I interview people all the time who don't like me for any number of reasons, even not based on anything in reality. They just don't like me. Or if I decide, well, I mean, my job is to represent other people who can't be there and ask questions and, you know, tough, fair, accurate questions and challenge people based on facts. But if somebody wants to insult me, that's fine. Let them insult me, put it on television, let the viewers make up their own mind about, well, why is the president insulting this reporter in this way? If you got up and left every time you had your feelings hurt, or you were, you know, somebody said something to you, people reveal themselves. And I like doing interviews in which people reveal themselves, whether they're revealing themselves consciously or not. If somebody reveals themselves as a bigot over the course of an interview, and I can talk to them about that and point out bigoted ideas, well, I think that shows something to the viewer. If I just think, well, I mean, I'm, you know, the flip side of this is I'm not putting a bigot on television to spew bigoted language and, you know, racist language and not have it go unchecked, or even to just so they can reach a wider audience. You know, I don't need to put somebody from the KKK on television. We all know what their beliefs are. There's no reason to, you know, promote it in that sense. But I think there's value. You know, your job is to ask questions, and the idea of, if the President of the United States decides to insult a reporter, okay, I mean, yeah, everybody could get up and leave, but everybody's not going to get up and leave because you have state, you know, media or media which is allied to that particular politician, and they're not going to leave because they're going to continue to ask questions, and then you're not going to get a representative sampling of reporters asking questions. So, you know, I think I understand the impulse, but I don't think I don't think getting up and leaving is the answer. It is, after all, the President of the United States. It's not as if it's some person outside, you know, the 7-Eleven who's just like hurling insults at you. Yeah, I have no problem. You know, I don't need to talk to that person. I don't, you know, if they don't want to be on camera, whatever. If it's the President of the United States in the Rose Garden on a world stage, hurling insults at a reporter, that's actually part of what's happening. And I think it's important. The fact that you know about it and you were offended by it, if nobody was there to report on it, you wouldn't know about it, and you wouldn't have heard about it, and you wouldn't have made a judgment based on it. So I think there's value in seeing these things and letting viewers make up their own mind. So.
This will be the last question.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Better be a good one. Pressure's on.
So I'm Ray. I'm a sophomore here, and I just want to ask, so getting up every day...
By the way, did you dress up for this? That's very nice if you did, but I don't think you did.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Oh, very nice.
Thank you. So getting up every day and hosting a show, what's been like the most difficult part of that in your daily life? And also, I also want to ask, throughout your whole career, what's been your favorite like position that you've held in journalism? What's your most favorite job that you've done so far?
And what was the first thing?
It was, what's the most difficult part of hosting a show every day?
Oh, the most difficult part of being you know, the most difficult part is, I mean, just the pressure of the daily, I mean, the pace is, I mean, again, the pace is unlike anything it's ever been. And it's the same pace for the people who work in the White House. Like, they're exhausted. And, the pace of the number of things that are happening, statements which are being made, things which are being said which are not true. There's so much information, there's so much stuff coming at you that is kind of overwhelming at times. And it's every single day, and it's all night long. And so, you get done with one broadcast, and already you're thinking about, okay, the next day, and where are resources deployed, and who do we have in this place? And then the weekend comes, and I travel somewhere internationally or in the US to shoot a story for 60 Minutes, because I can't do that during the week. And so I'm not complaining, because I like all this, but I think that's the most difficult thing, is just the constant grind of it. And it's one thing to do that for a week, it's another thing to do it for a month, it's another thing to do it to 18 years and watch your hair go white. And it takes a toll, and it's an interesting process, and you have to learn how to, it's a marathon and not a sprint, and you have to learn how to pace it out. And the second part of the question, I'm sorry, I was babbling, I can't remember.
It was what's, over the course of your career, what's been your favorite position?
Oh, my favorite position. There's a joke in there somewhere, but for a whole other meeting. What is my favorite position? Jeez, yikes. All right, so never mind. Look, doing what I'm doing now. I mean, at ABC, I anchored this overnight. I mean, I've loved every aspect. Look, when for 3 years, when I was from 22 to 25, I was traveling the world by myself sometimes with one producer or two producers. We were shooting our own stuff. We were going to places that we had no business being. It would be like, oh yeah, let's go to Soviet Georgia and go to the front lines in Abkhazia where there's a siege, and we'll rent an Aeroflot plane and we'll fly in and we'll pay them to stay on the runway for a couple hours. And then when we get on the plane and take off, the plane gets rushed by people who are trying to get out of the town, who are trying to take over the aircraft. I mean, just insane stuff that you can't even imagine is actually happens. And that was extraordinary. And then, to get hired at ABC and suddenly be around all these adults and, figure out how to be a television correspondent and stuff. That was probably my least favorite. And being at CNN is a nice place, it's a great place to work, and being at 60 Minutes and working with, these amazing producers. And I'm just in a very blessed position. But more than anything, it's the privilege of being in the field and having something happen and being able to touch somebody in the most difficult point of their life, to be able to be in Newtown, Connecticut, in the wake of the killings at Sandy Hook, and to have the mother of Grace McDonald, a 6-year-old girl who was murdered, ask you to come to her home, and so she can tell you about her 6-year-old daughter who's been murdered the day before, and the trust that mom, Lynn, has in you, not to ask something inappropriate, not to ask a stupid question like, well, how does it feel? When you see people on TV asking that question to someone who's lost somebody, I cringe. I mean, how does it feel? Yeah, you know what? I think you can guess how it feels. But people want you to know who their child was. They don't want you to know the name of the killer, because history shouldn't remember that person's name, but history should remember Grace's name, or Noah Posner, who was also killed at Sandy Hook, or any of the other kids or teachers. And so to be in a position where you're invited into somebody's home, and sit with them in the worst moment of their life, and connect with them, and talk with them about the loss and about the life their child led, not just how their child's life ended, that's the greatest thing of all, and that's the most extraordinary thing of all, and it's a great privilege, and yeah, I'm very lucky to do it, and I hope you all not have the opportunity to do that particular thing, because it's awful, but I think you're entering an incredibly honorable profession, despite what it sometimes looks like on cable news, with people shouting at each other. You're entering a profession in which you can save people's lives and you can inform other people about the lives of people they will never meet, and you can change lives. And I cannot tell you the ripple effects of things you do, of stories you tell. You will have no idea the ripple effects it can have. People seeing a story you do and deciding to change their life and devote themselves to something, or to open up a factory to manufacture something because of a need that they learned about because of a story you told about something in DRC Congo. And that's, it's an honorable, incredibly honorable profession, and it's a really tough one, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of, just bullshit you end up dealing with, and uncomfortable things you end up dealing with. But at its core, there's a mission to it, and there's an honor to it, and a great privilege to it. So I hope we all work together someday, or I'll probably end up working for you all at some point, because you all seem much more talented and more informed than I am. But thank you very much for all you're doing. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Anderson, so much. Thank you so much. I hate to be the bad guy. There's no time for selfies, but thank you all for coming. And make sure you watch AC 360 tonight from our studios upstairs. Thank you.